Well, by now we're finally headed for the home stretch. We need to tuck the side quarters into the rear curtain. Remember, we left little pockets on the rear curtain quarters, and we're going to take these top quarters and tuck them inside this little pocket. Now, if you remember back to the very first video when I took this all apart, this little flap was riveted. But I'm going to take these little buttons that I've salvaged off of other tops that'll replace these rivets. Some tops you'll even find that these quarter panels are inserted into the side curtain panels and hand stitched. Once I have this in position, I'm going to use a little pad inside so I don't damage the hand liner, and a little clamp, and hold this into place while I put the fasteners in place. And on the last video, I think it was, you remember I trimmed all this loose flap on the inside of the quarter panels, but the back end I glued. I didn't remove it. Well, this is a little quarter that you see. That's why I glued it and left it in place. Now, to make this little bend, I've got this little flap that I'm going to tuck up inside, and I'll eventually put a finished tack and hold it in place. We fold it so everything sheds water. Now, the curtain straps that we put in need to have a little drive knob up on top just above each curtain strap so that the straps will hold up the rear curtain. When these curtains are rolled up, it's a good idea to roll them to the inside, so when they're all rolled up, they don't catch water, but they shed water. So now I need to begin to stretch this top forward and finish off the leading edge. I have a couple of patterns that matches most of the bows, and I use them in two halves. This allows me to use one set of patterns to fit multiple tops. And with a simple pencil mark, I know where these patterns need to go so they fit this top. So what this pattern is for the leading edge. This leading edge is kind of a difficult edge to finish off so that it sheds water correctly. But using some of the same topping material, I'm going to take this pattern and cut a piece that will conform to the leading edge of the bow. This leading edge also needs to be reinforced, so I'm going to use the pattern and also make some reinforcement out of the same material I used for the quarters. The lower 3 inches of each end and the inside curve is going to be machine stitched. So I'm going to go ahead and fold these over and fit them into place. The remaining part will all be hand stitched, which we'll see in a minute. This style of finishing off the leading edge was very common from different top manufacturers, but it's not something that you see often done today because it's a lot of painstaking work. This is the old original that we took off the first top, and it isn't really finely finished. We're going to try to do a little better, but this will be the same principle. This will be the final machine stitching on this top. And this will be the final fitting on the leading edge. The front edge of the lower top quarters are going to be trimmed and tacked, while the front leading edge of the top deck will be hand stitched into this front piece that we just made. These tacks are going to go through several layers of material, so I keep some extra heavy tacks just kind of for this purpose. Now the lower edge, or the 2-inch seam here of the top quarter panels, is also directly in line with the lower border strip of the headliner inside. So now, finding my centers, I can go ahead and start to install this leading edge. The inside reinforcement strip that I put inside this leading edge is what actually will be tacked to the leading edge of the bow, so that there are no staples or tacks or fasteners that are visible. Now, throughout this whole top project, I've been using a staple that's 3/8 of an inch long. I'm going to step up now to a 1/2 inch long. Inside the top material of this leading edge, but on top of the reinforcement strip, I'm going to put back this bamboo reed trim that came out of the original top. Now the bottom end of this front trim, remember we stitched it, and the bottom layer or the bottom edge of the top quarter panel is tacked. So we have to make kind of a transition right here at this point. The bottom will be tacked securely, but the top is all going to be handwork. This is just using an old style hand stitching awl, and through the process of stitching across this front, I'm going to try to pull the front of the top material into the leading edge and kind of help stretch this whole top forward while I stitch it. This whole process is what makes a fairly watertight drip edge. And now I can finish tacking the leading edge of this front strip. And now we finally get to deal with these loose flaps. We have a loose flap that's left on the inside headliner border, and we have a loose flap on the lower part of the top quarter panel. I'm going to take the flap of the quarter panel first and glue it to the inside of the headliner, just where the border is. And when that's securely in place, I'm going to take another layer of adhesive on top of that flap, and I'll finally glue the lower flap of the inside headliner border. This completely seals off any access between the top material and the headliner. And this brings us to where our top is pretty much done, but I still like to relax the fit. I'm going to take an upholstery steamer, kind of soften some of this material and try to get it to relax and comfortably fit. Over time and use and out in the sun where it warms up, this top will actually relax even better yet than it is here. Now each of the top props that holds the joints in place, there's a little cast bell that's threaded on to these top props. This is kind of the finishing touch behind the joints up against the top material itself. So this is where we ended up when we're finally finished upholstering on this Surrey top. There's one little piece that's left. For the back seat, for the comfort of the passengers, there's a little storm curtain that goes on each side of the rear seat. These two pieces are the last two pieces to make for this top. On the back two sockets, and on the shifting rail itself, and on the outside edge of the rear curtain quarters are drive knobs that will accept these storm curtains. So this has been kind of a long drawn out video series on reupholstering an extension top for a Surrey, but I appreciate you hanging in there and walking all the way through the process. Thanks again for watching.